Hey,
I
doing
tried
fine
to
actually. Oh, what's up?
I've tried to get to try to set up the shadow play to see if maybe I could get a few clips from EU, but the computer is actually so potato that it can barely handle shadow play playing in the background.
Oh no. Oh no. Didn't that cost you like a few grand there or something?
I don't know. Well, the PC that I usually use is still in PC. This is like
I'm pretty sure
like
you've,
from
you forgot
2013.
to turn one of the audios off, though. Never mind.
Hi guys, welcome back to Talking Siege. We're here, episode number 73, and we got all kinds of stuff to talk about tonight. The regular crowd is here, Sky and Cthulhu. How you guys doing?
Doing pretty
Very
good.
well.
Yeah, great. And also you'll see that we've got Milostka or Milo over from Team Sinister joining us tonight. How you going, man?
I'm doing fine, actually. Thank you for asking.
Well, thanks for making the time. We're gonna touch on a couple things before we pick Milo's brain on how he's going with his competitive endeavors. First off, we're going to talk about some of the Shifting Tides updates. So, of course, Shifting Tides has been available for a few weeks now. We're past the point where the operators are only available to Season Pass holders, so now anyone without Season Pass can also get it for Renown or R6 credits. And we've got our first patch of the season dropping, just some minor changes, but they're worth talking about. The South African servers have been deployed on PS4 and Xbox One. I know most of our viewers are from ANZ, but you know we can say, hey, good on those people in South Africa now having some servers on console. Also, you'll notice the theme park discovery playlist is removed now. So if you want to play theme park, you can still play it in ranked or in quick match or in terrorist hunt. It's still available, but there's no longer a dedicated playlist for it. Also, something that I think a lot of people have really been talking about is, there's been a lot of miscellaneous bug fixes, and one in particular that I want to bring attention to is a bug that was to do with the Hibana fusing sound not being present. Sometimes, and I heard a lot of people complaining that they didn't hear Hibana pellets going off as they were fusing. That bug has been fixed, or at least one of the causes of that bug, so hopefully you'll see that a lot less frequently now. And speaking of kind of some bugs and community feedback, there's a dev blog that has been released to do with the top issues and concerns. Now, this is something that's been updated several times, and in the newest update, we have some more information that the developers have been explaining to the community about what kind of the top priorities from a technical standpoint right now with the state of the game and patches, as obviously the game's constantly being patched. So sound propagation issues are a big priority right now. If you want to go to the full website, you can find out all this information. I'm not going to read off absolutely everything, but I'll give you a bit of a gist on kind of where the developers are at. There's also some issues with rejoining ranked sessions resulting in a temporary ban. They're also being looked at as well. And some other things, the debris, the client-side debris getting stuck in windows and doors, and the performance with the in-game benchmarking. These are all things that are also being focused on at the moment, as well as consistency on gadgets destroying props. So with Shifting Tide, something was announced where if you threw a C4 grenade, it would destroy any little props like little bottles on the table that were in the way. There's just some increasing the consistency in that is a priority at the moment. There's also some balancing topics to do with operator bans. So there's a higher ban rate of Blitz, Echo, and Caveira. So after making some changes to Jackal, they're looking at what other data they can get to look into future balancing changes. And that's pretty much all that's been going on so far in terms of the state of the game. We also have the new the new Ella Elite, which has been announced, and we've got a little bit of a video which I'll just play in the background. And so a couple people might have seen the Ella Elite previously on social media, and they're going for the very artistic design for Ella Bosak. And yeah, it's very cool. I've already seen it a couple times in game, and we've got something cool a little bit later with some a cosplayer who was doing this, which I'm going to highlight at the end of the episode. So stick around for that. But that's pretty much all for game news. Now we're going to talk about what everyone actually wants to talk about, which is Milostka. Cthulhu, why don't you take us away with that?
All right. So first of all, once again, welcome Milo to the podcast. First of all, for those who might not know you, might be living under a rock, why don't you introduce yourself to the crowd a little bit?
So my name is Milostka, as you probably would all know. I am an up-and-coming professional Siege player playing for Team Sinister. I am an actual, thanks Luna for the cup reference. I'm entry fragger for Sinister, and I've only been in the competitive scene for probably around, give or take, maybe 8 months, give or take a couple of months. So I'm relatively new to the scene, and I have something to prove, kind of want to take my team to new heights, and we're all going to work together to solve that and see what we can show off with the APAC community.
Nice. So how first we'll kind of go through your past and kind of we'll work our way towards the present and the future for yourself. How did you come to be a part of the whole ANZ competitive community?
That's a good question, actually. When I ended up first getting this game, it was actually a decision not made by me, but a mate who gifted it to me. I actually had no interest in playing Siege, funny enough. I was more of a Counter-Strike player, played that game to a sort of semi-level degree for what I could do for my age at the time. And I ended up grinding out ranked for a long time. So I definitely played with a lot of IRL friends, played ranked, grinded out from like day to day, night. It was a lot of fun. And then I ended up getting picked up from a bunch of mates, and we made a team, Invictus. That team was all under 18 players, and we mainly did Go Forward tournaments, LPL, like amateurs, like the sort of basic stuff that you do when you first get into the competitive scene. But after that, I ended up making a little bit of a name for myself after I was sort of renowned as a closet cheater of Australia. I had quite a reputation for coming out with some unpredictable plays with wallbangs. Many people couldn't seem to piece it together, how I was getting all this information, and it was just, information gathering and prediction. I got picked up for Sleeper Gaming. Actually, no, first of all, I got put into Vanquish, which was probably my biggest jump from the low leagues that I was at into more of a sort of semi-competitive field. We were doing LPL, I think it was amateur, at a higher level. Yeah. We had a good run. Unfortunately, we disbanded due to conflicting and teammates and people having other opportunities that they wanted to strive for. But I ended up getting picked up for Sleeper Gaming. And that was a real good pickup. I felt like we were just all a family. It was great. We had a good atmosphere going on. Everyone was really well motivated, and we definitely did show that we had something to prove at that time. Definitely made some good plays as that team.
SLG roster has been a pretty long-running one as well, and you've had a pretty long one. How was it to be like a part of this like fairly long-running roster, and then to then have sort of a similar jump that you mentioned when you moved to Vanquish? Now you moved up to Sinister. Like, how much of a difference is there?
It was definitely it was sort of like a bitter pill to swallow. I really sort of like loved everyone that was on the team. We're essentially a family, and we all definitely split up. And it's really sad to see that the Sleeper Gaming roster has entirely sort of disbanded at this point. But moving into a new team, I was definitely barraged with just how motivated the Sinister players are and improving. Like, it sort of kicked me into a higher level gear. I was able to sort of more put effort into like dry running, stratting, working with the team, coordinating. Like, it was just a whole different atmosphere. It was really great and motivational. What they do is great.
And within the Sinister lineup, what is your current role, and like how do you prefer to approach it as a player?
With the team, we've had a few sort of late sort of scheduled roster changes, so we're still trying to sort of fit everything together with how we're going to have everyone line up. But mainly, I still believe I'm going to be entry fragger for the team.
Okay.
But the way that I ended up playing it is like I like to sort of test my boundaries with different teams, and I like to see what I can get away with, and then we can use that information with coming up with more of a sort of complex strategy for countering the enemy.
Okay.
Many people would just see that as me running around shooting people, like over aggressive, as a lot of people see it. But I think it's a great way to get information to see, test your limits and see exactly what you can do.
Okay. We actually have a clip to talk about as well. It's somewhat of a fairly a clip from a fairly long while. It was when you were back on the SLG roster. But maybe you'd be able to give at least some insight or just the thought process behind it. So we're just going to quickly take a peek at that clip, and we'll come back to you, and then we'll talk about it.
Sounds good.
Indeed, with Arla now returning back to the construction site and the dirt tunnel. He does have the control of the diffuser, so the attackers will need to come to him as Geo does pick up the kill onto Vexy. And it is all up to Milo to try to clutch this up against 3 players. Does manage to find the head of Tigers. As now Arlo will need to get a little bit more angsty about on the trigger finger. Will be taken down by Milo as well. It is a 1v1 situation. My goodness, with a minute and a half to go, Milo now has a fat chance of actually pulling this back for SLG and potentially making it a 2-3 scoreline at round number 5.
That's the crazy thing as well. All this unfolded in about the space of a minute 30, and now he's been given so much time, able to kill 2 players. They didn't wait on the pinch on that Habana. They could have just fallen back to site, rotated, and then held onto it from there. It's very difficult to push in to the site with 3 players, but now he's just trying to do his best to locate this visual, find out exactly where he is, and at the moment playing in a very interesting spot, I believe with the SMG-12 in hand on main stairs.
Correct. With Milo now getting a little bit angsty on the AD spam. We'll need to check literally every corner as possible. With Geo on full health as well as Milo on full health, Geo will need to try to go for the push. The plant will be denied for a little bit, but he still has time to go for another attempt. We'll be repositioning him a little bit to a little bit different position. The plant will be fully confirmed and stuck, so now the time will be starting to work against Geo. He will need to find that shot. He is trying to hide behind the pillar. The flashbangs to come out as he is in a little bit less favored position, trying to connect the shots. Milo is very low on health. The shots won't be connecting, and Milo will be able to clutch 1v3 situation. Ladies and gentlemen, Sleeper Gaming managing to bring back one more round for themselves. All right, so with the way how this went, can you give us kind of a bit of a rundown? So whenever you get into that kind of a 1v3 situation, you still have a little bit of that time. What's kind of your first step to kind of, I guess, reassess the situation?
So first of all, you got to know that you're probably not going to win. It's not a favorable position at all, and you really just want to try and claw your way as best you can to try and pull back those odds and get yourself that win. The first thing that I really wanted to do was just, as I was already in sight, I knew that the diffuser was drop dirt. I needed to try and see and needed to frag those guys before they either left dirt and rotated to go for a refrag, or I just beat those guys in a either one-on-one to a refrag battle. I knew there was only 2 people in tunnel, so I could either just take them both on, or I go kill the person that was somewhere that I had no idea behind me. I think he was main stairs at the time. But I ended up taking that gunfight in dirt and ended up beating both of them. I reckon I played that pretty well. Just trying to use the fact that I had an ACOG and taking long angles and just trying to hug those walls. I ended up figuring out that, I killed both of them, and I was like, okay, I'm going to go rotate out now, maybe try and see if I can reassess the situation now that I've got time. There's plenty of time left on the scoreboard, so I got plenty of time to drone and reassess and figure out exactly how my approach is going to be. I ended up leaving dirt and realizing that the default cam was up outside, so I ended up shooting that and completely backtracked into a less favorable position, sort of more of a final position, sort of playing a bit of mind games, thinking that there's just no way that I would go back there because it's so unfavorable to be peeking out in so many different angles from one position. I ended up going through there, droning out what was clear on site, and then leaving my drone on the in-between sites, holding the main stairs rotate and the rotate into my site. By doing that, my teammates were on my drone, giving me fresh information of what is clear and when I need to peek or when I need to hide for cover. So once I got that sorted out, I ended up going for a default plant in Armory, and ended up getting impacted, which forced me to get off diffuser to make sure that he didn't quickly rotate and got a line of sight with me. He ended up faking, so I replanted and was trusting my comms from my teammates who were freshly providing info through the drone that I had pre-placed. And by then it was post-planned, and it's essentially just one-on-one, you got to win this. If you don't, he gets diffused. So that was really just all that happened in that regard anyway.
Okay.
Wow. That was so much detail. Yeah. Yeah. I think that one of the things that really stuck out to me was that you had so much time. because I think this is something that the casters say during the clip. You guys went for some kind of rush strategy or something, because by the time it was a 1v3, there was a minute and a half to go, which you had so much time to work with. And I mean, you used that to drone, set up that flank watch drone for your teammates, as you said. So yeah, super impressive clip. And yeah, it's funny that quite a few of these players are actually now in the Pro League. From two old under-18 teams that no longer exist, but the players have gone over to do great things, including yourself.
Yeah, it's great. Really is.
My question is sort of, obviously you've experienced Sleeper Gaming, and now you're in Sinister. Although the Pro League hasn't yet commenced, you've had some experiences within the A&Z closed qualifiers for the Invitational. I'd also imagine that you've scrimmed a few Pro League teams. What are sort of the main differences that you see between sort of where you're at before in Sleeper Gaming and maybe that Challenger League / under 18 level to Pro League? Like, what are the main differences that sort of you can see?
The coordination and communication is on a different level. When you're in an under 18 team, it's a lot of like hyperactive people who can fall back on their under 18 level like mechanical skill, which doesn't particularly work against more coordinated and structured teams. Playing with Sinister, it's you got to find your role, and everyone's sort of a piece of part in a machine that needs to work and operate together with everyone playing their part. There's little room to sort of solo play because it can get punished quite a lot, and once you get that player down advantage for the enemy team, it's you leave one of those cogs that you don't have in the machine that's operational. So if the big difference is just mainly just communication, motivation as well, like many teams compared to under 18 teams have a higher level of motivation. There's more scrim time, there's more strat time, there's a lot of VOD times. It does become a sort of a full-time thing when you get to that sort of level that you wouldn't otherwise see in a under 18 sort of circumstance.
And I guess since we are talking still a little bit about the old Sleeper days playing on the under-18 team, I mean, I think it's fair to say that you guys had quite a lot of success with that team. You guys made it to the 6 Masters, which was quite a big deal, I think, to compete in that online league. And unfortunately, you just fell short on what was it, the final play day. And for a long time, it looked like you were going to make it. Can you run us through, give us a little bit of a memory refresher of what happened during that season?
Oh, we were so happy and excited for the season. As a team, we had our first game against Fnatic, and for us at the time, that was it was definitely breathtaking and scary. A lot of us may have may not been able to take a map from Fnatic. We were so excited the night prior that none of us actually got any sleep. I'll be pretty honest with you. We all had about 2 hours sleep. Everyone was like rocking, a bit shaky, a bit of stims already in the morning. Everyone pumped for the game, and then it came to second map, and we were just all running out of juice. We were just doing things that shouldn't have happened. We were just doing throws. It wasn't the best experience for us in that time, but like going against Mind Freak and experiencing different level of play really pushed us to new heights to improve. We ended up seeing just how much we need to learn as a team and to coordinate, and we ended up focusing on that, and we really did have a great time. It was excellent.
Yeah, fantastic. I think people often talk about how there aren't as many opportunities for under 18 players as there is for over 18 players, and that's why I think almost every, if not every, under 18 comp player out there is just waiting for that day that they turn 18 so that they can go and play Pro League, Challenger League, whatever it is. And finally, you have made it. Obviously, you did have that competition experience at a high level with 6 Masters even before that. One of the things I also wanted to touch on now, unfortunately, Sleeper Gaming didn't qualify for the finals of 6 Masters, so you haven't had an opportunity to play on LAN at that event, but you seem to be at almost every single LAN event, at least in Melbourne, that I've been to. I noticed your Twitter profile picture is actually you standing with Walker from the 6 Masters 2018. So can you talk a little bit about your experiences at live events, even not as a player, but as a community member? Back
when I was with Walker in that photo back in 2018, I don't think I was ever known in the community. I was more of a sort of nobody at that time. that was just me. I'll be pretty honest with you. At the time, I didn't really know the significance of taking that photo with Waka was. All my friends were there, and you're like, "Oh, it's Waka," and I'm like, I just sort of tagged along and was like, "Okay, I'll take a photo with him." And then it sort of stuck after you, because once I ended up realizing the significance, I sort of made that my Twitter profile. And I was like, "That's a pretty cool photo that I got with someone of a high level gamer." Then I ended up making my way. I think the next event that I went to was Six Masters. At the Six Masters event. That was definitely a lot of fun. For the first time ever, I was actually signing autographs for people coming by. I didn't really think that I warranted such a sort of response. I thought that was a really good experience. And then meeting the actual players in person for the first time, the whole APAC community, it was great. Yeah, a lot of conversation that you wouldn't normally have with other players. It was a crazy, really good experience, and it was good to meet some of the players and sort of build more of a relationship with others and sort of get closer as a sort of group. It was great.
Yeah, I was really glad that you got to be at Six Masters and that you got to join in, not just obviously by watching the event, but I think you also had the opportunity to connect with a lot of the other people from the scene, competitors. I think that Shane from Ubisoft was also there. I believe you had a chat to him, potentially. So yeah, I mean, getting involved, and it can seem a bit like there's a bit of a disconnect. How do you actually become part of the scene? But it just goes to show you can be from any position playing for a team in some Go fours, and then before you know it, you could be in the Pro League if you put the work in and if you have that drive to make it work. Now, we wanted to touch on some stuff that's happening outside of ANZ, because we've really been neck deep in local stuff so far. But we wanted to touch on quite a major roster change that's happened in Europe, something that's been, I think, talked about for quite some time leading up to this point. It's Team Vitality's roster change. So there is a little bit of a video. I'm just gonna play the video, and we'll be back in a moment.
Hey man, you should put it back in place. And you know why.
Because the next one will be ours.
So I think that's a bit of a throwback for a lot of people. If you were watching in the scene back when Team Vitality did win the six, what was it? Wasn't it Six Invitation? It was Year 1, Season 3, I think, on Xbox. Now, if I'm wrong, someone's definitely going to correct me there. But Team Vitality, they moved to PC, and for a long time they have been a really strong PC team. Unfortunately relegated to the Challenger League at one point, but also have really made their mark back again. And they're picking up two huge players with Goga, the one and only Goga from G2, and also Hungry, formerly from Penta. So I think Team Vitality was already a team that people were quite scared of, and I think that this is just going to make them stronger. Especially coming into that European qualifier for the Six Invitational. There's just that one spot left for Europe. Vitality could take that. Do you guys have any opinions on Goga and Hungry joining this roster? Are they players that you expected to see move over to it, and you think it's going to help increase Team Vitality's performance?
I think turning a team that's already a sort of titan in the sort of Pro League scene into something a little bit better is definitely a good approach. Goga and Hungry, just crazy players, and I really just can't wait to see what they do with a different roster, how they sort of fit in the puzzle pieces. Honestly, I think it's great.
Yeah, it's definitely feels like an upgrade. Both Hungry and Goga had some pretty good highlights, especially Goga. I would say he will be able to bring in a whole lot of that, a good idea of like how the coordination and how the play could work, being a part of G2 for that long of a while. And he was a part of one of the better parts of G2 when they were winning the Pro League seasons and the majors. And honestly, I would have to say that, yeah, I mean, Vitality could be even scarier now, to be honest.
Yeah, I think for me, maybe it's a little bit more of a boring response in a way, but back when, it wasn't too long ago, just a few weeks, where Cryan was picked up by G2, and that was sort of before the Ogre Minor, and everyone was, G2 are going to go crazy, this is going to be what they need. My sort of response was, sort of got to wait and see how it plays out, and G2 were first rounded, so I'm sort of in the same boat here. I'm a bit skeptical. I'm interested to see. I think that they do potentially have the parts, and it could for sure be a winner. But at the same time, there's always a potential that it'll fall through and won't work out as well. But I mean, on the note of the EU qualifiers, they're happening in literally 7 hours, so not very long. We're going to find out very, very soon if this team is going to be one that clicks. And yeah, I'm really excited.
Yeah, I mean, on those EU qualifiers, Vitality, G2, BDS, Fours, my gosh, there are so many super strong teams in that bracket who are vying for those spots, that single spot, the Six Invitational. And, G2 didn't make it through the OGA pit minor. Like you said, they were first rounded. I think that people thought that was their opportunity, but they didn't make it. So this is the last chance to see G2 make it, and I mean Vitality. I certainly, I'd put my money on them for the EU qualifier. One thing I think is interesting: Team Vitality always known to be a French team for a really long time. That's been a strong part of their identity. Vitality, the organization, super well renowned in France. These guys also came as the runners-up, second place in the French League finals just 2 months ago, I think, after Vodafone Giants. And they're no longer a majority French team. So you can see in the tweet, there's flags next to all the player names: Goga, Spanish, Hungary, German, Stiggy, Finland, and then just the 2 players from France. I believe their coach is French, but, in the core roster, no longer majority French. And, that's definitely going to play into how, whether they... I don't know at what point they switched to English comms instead of French comms, but that could certainly have an impact on the team as well.
Yeah, that's a pretty good point. The language barrier, I would imagine, will be quite big as well, considering that French is not the closest, honestly, language to English per se.
Sorry, you go.
Yeah, and being myself as like a bilingual, I know that occasionally some things will need to be mixed in with in different languages. So surely, I mean, for a European team, there's so many of them that have ended up adapting to having a mixture of different languages. So it might be an issue, but at the same time, this could also mean that some of the callouts could be shorter and could be easier in a different variety of languages. So for them, maybe it could work out, honestly.
We'll have to wait and see. As you said, Sky, it's not long before we'll get to find out how these guys perform in the EU qualifiers. Speaking of Six Invitational qualifiers, let's talk about the Japanese Invitational qualifiers. It was a super competitive online qualifier for Japan. For those who don't know, there's one spot remaining at the Six Invitational for APAC, and each of the APAC sub-regions, Japan, Southeast Asia, South Korea, and ANZ, do an online qualifier. The number one team from that goes to an APAC LAN event, and the number one team out of that LAN event goes to Invitational. So all the other sub-regions are already done. It's just Japan that was left, and there were 4 really, really strong teams in the running. Cyclops, Norengo, who is the most esteemed of those teams, also Guts Gaming, who's been really, really good in the Pro League last season, and Detonation, who Dizzle actually mentioned last week, is a team to watch out for in Japan. Detonation did almost make it through, actually. They eliminated Norengo, who lost to both Guts and Detonation, and went out as in 4th place. And Detonation came as the runners-up after Cyclops. So we'll see Cyclops at the LAN event alongside Fnatic from ANZ, Cloud9 from Korea, and Xavier Esports from Southeast Asia. Guys, this is shaping up to be a really exciting LAN event. Is there anything in particular you wanted to highlight, whether it's something with one of these teams or one of the teams that didn't make it through?
I mean, I'm surprised that the results that ended up being the for Japan qualifiers, because I guess for most of us, we're so accustomed now seeing Nora to be somewhat of a frequent appearance on the APAC lands, whether it's Pro League in general, and seeing them being on the 4th place, it's a bit of a surprise, at least to me.
I'm sort of interested to hear your take, Milo, considering you are a professional player. Unlike myself, Devon Cthulhu at this point in time. What's sort of your thoughts on these qualifications?
It's been a bit of like a sort of pill to swallow now that Norengo is just not going to be showing up as often as they used to be, given that the roster changes have happened the way that they were when they lost Walker and I forgot the other one's name. I think it was Rami. That's it. Kind of expected to see Cloud9 to make their way into the LAN experience, to the LAN show. And they seem to just always do from the Korean scene. That's what they can do. But Xavier has definitely been something to show up. Cyclops has definitely proven themselves that they are a force to be reckoned with. Especially, I think it was, was it one of the APAC qualifiers against Wildcard at the time. They did really well against them in Villa. Definitely show them that like mechanically they are just some of the most nuts players ever to have existed. They are definitely a force to be reckoned with. Seeing that they're the wildcard, the close second, or the rival to Fnatic at the time wasn't in the qualifiers, it's a bit expected to see Fnatic there, especially with their new roster lineup. I can't see anything bad about that. Their new roster is just nuts. Picking up Mentalist was an insane thing that they just pulled out of a hat, you will. Picking up Tex as well, he was definitely a surprise. I know that guy. He has got some nuts aim, and it's good to see that he will be definitely complementing Virtue in that regard, with probably some two-man pushes, just them complementing with their aim. There's nothing much to say here. Just a great overall. Going to be a very competitive qualifier, APEC qualifier.
Yeah, I think probably the two sub-regions that interest me the most would be actually in terms of these qualifications. Although Japan was obviously really exciting and anyone could have taken it, and ANZ, Fnatic, we got to see them start up with their new roster. It's actually Japan and Korea. Korea and Southeast Asia. From Southeast Asia, we saw Xavier qualify. And for some people, you'd go, oh, yeah, that's what you'd expect, right? But when you actually look at the Xavier roster, this isn't the Xavier that we're familiar with. This is a different lineup of players under the Xavier organization name. So they've actually, the old Xavier has changed organization and name, and a new Xavier roster has come through. And yet they've still managed to qualify. And looking at the Korean region, like you mentioned, Milo, obviously, generally speaking, out of Korea, you're always sort of expecting Cloud9, but they actually had a really, really tough fight to be able to make it to this LAN. They were actually knocked into the lower bracket by Trippy.
Trippy showed up.
Trippy did show up, and they managed to fight through the lower bracket, and then face Trippy again in the grand final, to which they 2-0'd Trippy on final 1. And then because they beat them and Trippy had the upper bracket advantage, they had to go to final 2, in which it was a 2-1 win by Cloud9, but the last 2 maps of that series were both 8-7s. So literally round for round, it does not get much closer than that.
Yeah, Cloud9 has been a turbulent past for Cloud9 recently, and I agree with you, Sky. Like, I think Korea and Southeast Asia are the two most surprising regions in this qualify, especially because Cyclops has had that LAN experience before. That's to be expected, but Cloud9 getting knocked down to the lower bracket, that was a surprise. Trippy's been doing really well. I'm super excited for Trippy. It's the one team here in this that's not in this lineup that I'm actually super excited for, is seeing how Trippy go next Pro League season and into the future, because one day they're going to keep getting to go to these APAC LAN events, and one day I think they're seriously going to make their mark, and hopefully we'll see a more competitive Korean region. And like you said, Xavier Esports, it's not the same Xavier we're used to. The old Xavier roster, they made some roster changes, and they're now called Q Confirm. And the current Xavier roster has 2 of the former players from the old team as well. So some LAN experience there, but another Thailand team. Thailand pumps out so many really good teams. And this is going to be their first LAN as a 5 as well. So I'm super excited for that too. In fact, I think all of these teams are looking different. Like Cyclops has traded out Shokai for, I forgot his name. let me,
Gators or something.
yeah, something that I'm going to be not looking forward to learning how to pronounce. But yeah, yes, Aya Gator with a really weird Twitter handle. Yeah, I think that's going to be super interesting to see how all these teams show up. Fnatic, obviously, big roster changes too. I feel like Fnatic are still the favorite at this tournament, though. Do you guys agree with that? Do you guys disagree?
I reckon they're going to be more of a controversial one, I would say, with the whole new lineup, with new players from different regions coming across, and a new player from a different team that may not be as known as the other Fnatic players might be putting an interesting twist to see just how much people really view them as the top dog. But I think, in my opinion, that they're really solid players, all really good.
Cthulhu?
I mean, honestly, for Fnatic, I'm keen to see how well they've improved for the APAC qualifier, for the APAC offline qualifier. I'm tempted to say Fnatic just because it would be weird not to see them appear on Invitational, but I also wouldn't be surprised if we'll end up seeing something like Cyclops or even Cloud9 at this point.
Yeah, I'm sort of in a similar boat. I think like at face value, Fnatic seem to be the favorites, but I mean, I guess when we look at each qualifier, Fnatic, I'd say, compared to the other regions, had a pretty breezy run through the qualifiers with Oddity, who was looking to be sort of their main sort of difficulty. Contender, yeah. Having to not disband, but forfeit due to unfortunate circumstances. And yeah, you look at the other regions again at Cloud9, we just talked about difficult run. Xavier, maybe less so, and then Cyclops as well, having to fight against, the likes of Norengo, Detonation. I think it's going to be one of the closest, if not the closest, APAC invitational / major events that we've had yet. And yeah, I can't wait to watch it.
And one thing that sticks out for me, if Cyclops or Xavier win this event, then we will not have any of the teams that were at the Six Invitational from APAC last year. We will not have Fnatic, we will not have Cloud9, and we will not have Norengo. Can you imagine that? It would be Airwolf Wildcard and Cyclops or Xavier. Like, what? And if Xavier wins it, we won't have any Japanese or Korean teams at International LAN. And I believe that would be the first time ever there is an International LAN event, an International Major or Pro League Finals, without a Japanese team since APAC was introduced to the Pro League. So that would be crazy to think. It's very exciting.
The question I have is, with the new roster pickup of Aya Gator, we now have two people with Gato in their name. We've got Gatorada and Aya Gator. I want to know what Gator means. Surely it means something in Japanese, and I want to know. I was talking to Guz about this yesterday. I am intrigued. If someone knows, please let me know.
When I was talking to Jess, the Japanese translator, last time, a while ago, about Japanese player names, I think she said often it doesn't necessarily mean anything. It's just what they think sounds cool. But who knows? Maybe Gator actually does mean something, though.
We'll have to see for that.
Yeah, we have to see. But yeah, I do want to make the last point as well. Since we touched up on the past of the Six Invitational qualifiers, last time it was also, I believe. No, wait, that was for Rally. So for the big major, it was CAG that actually qualified, and seeing them reappear here, but versing a completely different ANZ team, I'm actually quite curious to see how will they perform, considering that it's not per se the very same CAG lineup. So honestly, I'm kind of excited, not gonna lie, to the point where I'm actually tempted, if it's gonna be somewhere across the lines of like early in the morning for me while I'm still in Russia, I'd be definitely down to pull an all-nighter just to watch it.
Usually it's us in ANZ staying up all night to watch the NA and EU majors, but it's the one time that you're in Russia you have to stay off late to watch the ANZ event. What are the chances?
I mean, why not? Gotta give it all to the region.
Yeah.
I'm keen to end this out, guys. we're gonna go through our predictions. One team who's gonna win it, Cthulhu.
Oh, you gotta throw do me like that right here, Sky. I'm gonna go with Fnatic. I'm gonna go with Fnatic just for the sheer fact that I'm curious to see how the addition of Mentalist and Text will work out for them.
Milostka?
I think it's. I honestly I have no real knowledge of the new roster of Xavier, but it'd be interesting to see just how Fnatic with the new roster can deal with an insane level of coordinated aggression from Cyclops. I honestly think it'd be really close between those two. Whether Fnatic can shut down that aggression or where Cyclops will just run them over and take the win. But I honestly would probably say close Fnatic. It'd be a tough game, where they're able to pull it in and go for some counter aggression, or Cyclops are going to steam roll them. But I'm going to have to maybe go with Fnatic on this one, just slightly Fnatic with this new with the win.
Dev?
Man, I like to do the underdogs, so I want to go Xavier because I think they're the team that's least likely to win this event, and I think it would be super awesome if they did. And also, I got a soft spot for Cloud9 because they've been really down in the dumps recently. So I'd love to see them win, but I think you got it on the money, Melo and Cthulhu. I think Fnatic and Cyclops have the best chances, and I think Fnatic, I don't know, I just got a feeling, Dizzle knows what's up. He's made some big roster changes. I think that we're going to see Fnatic hopefully return to form. And, what I really hope we get all three of our APAC teams, Fnatic, Wildcard, and Airwolf, onto the main stage at the Invitational, through the group stages up to the top 8. I really hope so. And I reckon Fnatic is capable of that.
Okay.
That's pretty fair, yeah.
While we talk about APACs and six invitationals, I am so glad that we are seeing more APAC teams in international competitions. It's good to see that APAC is getting sort of more recognition in the scene, and I am definitely happy for it.
Yeah, me too, man.
I'm with you on that one. I think we might, if you guys are happy to leave it there, we might move on to the US Nationals now. And this could be sort of interesting because, we're just talking about, which APAC teams are at the Six Invitational. I think it's fair in saying that we are going to also see a lot of the faces that we're seeing at the US Nationals also at the Six Invitational. So I'm going to start off by quickly running through all the results, and then we can very quickly sort of go through them and chat about them. So for the quarterfinals, we had Sonics 2-0 Tempo, SSG 2-0 Dark Zero, Reciprocity 2-1 Luminosity, TSM 2-0 EG, semifinals SSG 2-0 Sonics, Rec 2-0 TSM, and then for the final, we had SSG, and maybe this was one of the more surprising results, 3-0. So it was a best of 5, 3-0 Reciprocity. So again, obviously that's a lot of information. It's all on your screen. Guys, what do we make of this? We'll start with you, Milo.
Space Station, just a force to be reckoned with. Their calculated aggression and teamwork, especially just in those nitty gritties with just re-peaking and just dual peaking and triple peaking, they are clinically destroying and tearing apart Reciprocity. Even in some rounds, I couldn't even believe it. It was definitely a dominant performance. All in all, Team Reciprocity definitely bringing it back some way. Making it a little bit close, but you got to hand it to them. Space Station were just on a different level at that time. They were really kicking it into gear.
And I think they beat debatably the best team in North America right now, right in the quarterfinals, which was Dark Zero. I think a lot of people were expecting Dark Zero to be one of the favorites to win this event. They came as runners-up at the Pro League finals in Tokoname, and they very convincingly came first place in North American Pro League. So yeah, I think Space Station, with beating Dark Zero and Team Rec, who were the first and second place teams from the last season of Pro League, I think that's, and on land no less, I think that's a huge testament to how far Space Station has come.
Yeah, I'd say the big sign for me initially prior to the beginning of the USN finals was the fact that SSG nearly managed to win the Yoga Pit as well, and the way how they played it was nearly on a whole new level. And to me, probably at this point, I'm just joining Sky's side at this point, being all in for SSG. But I'm honestly, I was from a get go predicting that SSG would at the very least get to the grand finals. I wasn't as sure about that, but I mean, Strife was giving me all the points. Let's just say that.
Yeah, I think it was the Raleigh Major where I predicted that SSG would win
Yep.
it, and they didn't. They didn't win it, but they did show probably a lot more force than what a lot of people would have expected. So
Semis or
it's
quarters
just
did they make it to?
I think they made it to the quarterfinals, I believe. Maybe semi.
I think
I
it
don't
was
know.
semis.
Maybe it was semis. So
I'm
not
gonna
a bad
Google this
guess.
right now.
Either way, yeah, like massive props to them. Yeah, like just good on Space Station. They're a pretty good team. I think I saw maybe it was Redeemer, who is actually the coach of another team. Which one is he's a coach of Rogue, so he's no longer. Although his Twitter which is very confusing, is Redeemer SSG. He is on Rogue, not SSG, so that's very confusing. But yeah, I think he said that in fact I've got the tweet up now. So he said 1 year, three fifth place finishes, 15 roster changes, and 36 coaches later. Maybe overstating it a bit there. And they finally got a dub. These guys truly deserve it. And yeah, congrats to the Space Station boys. So good on them. And maybe an even bigger congratulations to Canadian, who I think I saw the ESL Twitter said 1,043 days, was it, since the last win. And he's also made it to 5 finals or 6 finals, was it, in the meantime, and lost all of them. So, that's a true sign of respect there to stick it out for that long and finally manage to get a win on the board.
Yeah, I mean, he's gotten wins, but it's the grand finals that he keeps going into those grand finals. And yeah, obviously, when it was the EG versus G2 era, I feel like it was an era where every single grand final and every major or pro league was G2 versus EG, and G2 would win. And yeah, I mean, it started with the 2018 Invitational where Canadian on Evil Geniuses let their 2-0 lead slip to lose to then Penta, now G2. And even at the US Nationals last year, he was on Evil Geniuses and they lost to Rogue. So it's absolutely been a long time coming for Canadian. He's been one of my favourite players for a long time. I've been a huge fan ever since I started watching the Pro League in Year 1 Season 3 when he was on Continuum and they beat Playing Ducks in the grand final. Yeah, and I mean, it's great to see him, stand there proud. It might not be the Evil Geniuses jersey, but it's a great looking Space Station hoodie, and yeah, I'm really happy for him.
Yeah, I mean, same goes here. Man's been on the grind for so long, and I don't think he's planning to stop here as well.
Milo, could you maybe talk a little bit about, like, as a player, how it can, like, maybe be difficult? Like, I guess sort of being able to stick it out, like, what sort of the mental process that you go through after a loss, and, how do you sort of...
Well, you're not finding... It's one of the big things that actually sort of like distinguish players from others is whether they stay committed and work with what they have rather than sort of discard and look for something new. You'll end up finding like it especially is common with under 18 teams. Once they end up hitting a hard wall, which you always do in a competitive game, you hit something you can't beat. You just get smacked around. You lose, and that's just a part of the competitiveness is like as its nature. You will get those moments where you get slapped around, and being able to stick through is what really distinguishes people. And it's one of the hardest things, staying motivated when you're getting all this negative sort of feedback with you're putting effort in and still not getting the win. But you end up having a look at what actually matters, whether you see actual improvement, whether you can measure improvement, and what you can do as a player, and like improvements just in yourself in general, like communication, mechanical skill, strats, and just thinking, sort of critical thinking in that regard. It's one of those things that if someone sticks through it all, you end up getting the sort of the fruit of all that waiting, whether it is sticking it out and making yourself to PL, or sticking it out and making yourself to some sort of finals in the international scene. It's like it's essentially you don't just win and become the best in a day. So I'm really happy for Canadian, for someone to stick it in there and to really feel and relish into all that waiting. I'm glad for him.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I'm talking about SSG. They did win 7 consecutive maps at the event. They didn't drop a single map. 2-0 Dark Zero, 2-0 Sonics, 3-0 Team Rec. That is a huge feat. We don't often see teams go through. In fact, recently I feel like there's been a bit of a trend of the team who tends to win the event does struggle in the earlier stages of the event. We saw that with Team Empire. They dropped a couple maps on their way to the championship at Raleigh, and we saw the same thing with Na'Vi, where they only just beat Wildcard, only just beat Reciprocity, and then won the final against Dark Zero. So Space Station, I guess, breaking that trend. And we've talked a lot about Six Invitational tonight, about the qualifiers. The North American qualifier still hasn't happened yet. We'll have Space Station competing in that alongside the likes of TSM, Evil Geniuses. Now, there's going to be some big competition to meet with in that.
Yeah, for sure. Again, guys, if you've got any closing thoughts, feel free to go. But I think we'll move now on to our host topic section for this week, starting with
Right, so my top pick for this one was a pretty funny crossover from between the anime called JoJo's Bizarre Adventure and Siege, as you can see on the screen. I actually had enjoyed this pretty thoroughly, as it was pretty well done as well. not gonna lie.
Yeah, if in fact we can just throw over to that for a moment, and we'll be back.
Mm.
別に愛し合ってる仲じゃねえんだろ助けてくれと言ったら死にたいのかあいつを引き込めばあいつを差し出せば本当に僕の命は助けてくれるのかああ約束するよ奴の養分と引き換えのギブアンドテイクだ呼べよ早く呼べだが断る何この岸辺露伴が最も好きなことの一つは自分で強いと思ってる奴にノーと断ってやることだジョジョ俺の最後の波紋だぜ受け取ってくれ
I'm not sure what that was, Cthulhu, but that was a unique experience. And as Sky said while we were watching that, audio listeners are going to be like, "What is that?" So, yeah, there you go. That was pretty cool.
Definitely an interesting experience.
So, if people want to find this clip and endorse it on Reddit, whatever, where would people find that, Cthulhu?
So I'll just quickly grab it. The link is actually on the official R6 subreddit. So / Rainbow 6, you'll be able to find it.
I just chucked it into chat as well.
I'll chuck it in the chat.
Oh,
the link to it. Oh, you already did it, mad lad. But yeah, it's out there. It's definitely quite something. But I don't know. To me, it seemed pretty cool, honestly.
Yep, love it. I'm a big fan. All right, Sky, what did you have this week?
So we've been talking a little bit about SSG and Canadian, so I figure it's only right to showcase the Captain Canada showcase. This was tweeted out by ASL Rainbow 6. And yeah, I just thought it's pretty funny, sort of, I guess, pretty funny picture in relation to the USN finals. And yeah, he's finally broken the curse. He's finally won the finals. So yeah.
That is a dedicated Photoshop, might I add. You know, that is a very good Photoshop. Not only have they Photoshopped Captain America to be Captain Canada, I'm assuming maybe there was someone had made a Captain Canada somewhere before ESL did, but they actually Photoshopped his face into the mask as well. So ESL Rainbow Six.
Looks real good.
Yeah, ESL Rainbow Six is always gonna supply you with the best memes.
Oh yeah.
Indeed.
And for my pick this week, it was actually a partnership, a piece of content, thanks to a little bit of a partnership with a cosplayer called Alison Tabitha and Ubisoft USA. They did something to celebrate the Ella Elite skins, so we're just going to watch this in full screen, and we'll be back in a moment.
Hey guys, I have teamed up with Ubisoft to recreate the new Ella Elite skin from Rainbow Six Siege. I got to be part of a really cool shoot where I got to play the game as Ella and also transform into her. Watch my full video on Instagram TV Video to see her in action. But first, I'm going to show you how I transform into her. Ella, whose full name is Elzbieta Ella Bozak, is the sister of Sofia Bozak in-game. She has quite an amazing backstory. After graduating school, she left Poland to work in Berlin for a private military company, and while working there, she gained a reputation for her impressive range of abilities, and also for having a bit of an attitude, but that's what I like about her. Later, she started training to pass the Grom section as a civilian. This is where she developed an expertise in countering threat networks, and helped design an advanced exploitation method which explains her cool gadget, the Grismont Mine. She is one all-around badass, which is definitely worth bringing to life. To bring Ella to life, we had to recreate all of her costume, which is very detailed. It all starts from the shoes, which she wears 2 different colored Converse. These are super practical whether she's walking in the streets or in combat mode. For her jeans, she wears these torn boyfriend fit, which aren't too fitted, but are ripped in all the right places. We replicated her shirt, which includes her signature patch from her squad. Her jacket, which is my favorite piece of hers, has multiple patches and embroidery, including the Berserked insignia on the back and multiple patches from her missions. To complete the ultimate Ella look, we had to include her signature weapon, the Grismont Mine. To bring it to life, we actually turned it into a controller, and I got to play Rainbow Six Siege as Ella with her weapon of choice. I'm so nervous. Which way? Left or right? Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. Did I even hit him? Oh no. Am I watching this door? Where? It's an explosion! Ah! Am I dead? I laid in the corner and just died. I had so much fun playing Rainbow Six Siege and bringing Ella to life. You can check out her new Elite skin now available in-game. If you want to play as Ella, the new Elite skin is available in-game now. Check out the link in my bio.
So yeah, that's the cosplay. If you want to go and check out the rest of her content, Alison Tabitha on Instagram is where you want to go. I believe she's one of the larger cosplay influencers globally for any game. So yeah, I mean it's really I think a privilege to have her do her trade on Rainbow Six. I thought that was pretty awesome. So yeah, I mean that's pretty much all we've got for tonight, and on top of that. That's actually pretty much all we've got for the year. We're gonna go and have a bit of a Christmas break with Talking Siege, and yeah, we're gonna miss streaming every week. But I think that it's there's always a time. You know, Monday nights now, instead of watching Talking Siege, can be playing ranked. So it's a win-win, right? I know it's definitely what I'm gonna be doing with my spare time anyway. So yeah, first off, I just want to say thank you so much, Milo, for coming along, and I think you really gave us a lot of insight. So we appreciate your time.
It's a good pleasure. Thank you, guys.
And yeah, thank you, Sky and Cthulhu, as always, doing a bang up job. And thanks to everyone who's been watching. If you're tuned in on Twitch or YouTube, feel free to follow. Head over to the Rainbow Six ANZ Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, that you can get updates not only on Talking Siege but everything else that's happening locally for Rainbow Six in Australia and New Zealand. And yeah, we'll be back. We've got the next big thing coming up will be the 6th Invitational APAC qualifier on January the 5th. So make sure you keep an eye on this channel and the Rainbow Six channel for updates on that. But that's all from us for tonight. I hope you guys have a good Christmas and holidays and whatever it is you do, whatever you celebrate over this period. And we'll see you after the break.
So give me